Good evening. It is July 28th. It is the 28th. Yes, July 28th. Tonight we're going to be reading from 2nd Chronicles 21:1 through 23:21, Romans 11:13 through 36, Psalms 22:1 through 18, and Proverbs 20 through 7. Every night we like to do the Lord's Prayer, so if you will join with me, I greatly appreciate it. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory forever and ever. Amen. 2nd Chronicles 21:1 through 23:21. Jehoshaphat died and was buried in the family cemetery in the city of David. Jehoram, his son, was the next king. Jehoram's brothers were Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azurah, Michael, and Shephatath, the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Their father had lavished them with gifts, silver, gold, and other valuables, plus the fortress cities of Judah. For Joram was his firstborn son, and he gave him the kingdom of Judah. But when Joram had taken over his father's kingdom, he had secured his position. He killed all his brothers along with some of the government officials. Good God. Joram was 33 years old when he became king and ruled in Jerusalem for 8 years. He imitated Israel's kings and married into the Ahab dynasty. God considered him an evil man, but despite that, because of his covenant with David, God was not yet ready to destroy the descendants of David. He had, after all, promised to keep a light burning for David and his sons. During Joram's reign, Edom revolted from Judah's rule and set up their own king. Joram responded by setting out with his officers and chariots. Edom surrounded him, but in the middle of the night, he and his charioteers broke through the lines and hit Edom hard. Edom continued to revolt against Judah right up to the present. Even little Libnah revolted at the time. The evidence accumulated. Since Joram had abandoned God and the God of his ancestors, God was abandoning him. He even went so far as to build pagan sacred shrines in the mountains of Judah. He brazenly led Jerusalem away from God, seducing the whole country. One day he got a letter from Elijah the prophet. It read, "From God, the God of your ancestors David, a message. Because you have not kept the ways of Jehoshaphat as your father and Asa, your grandfather, kings of Judah, but have taken up with the ways of the kings of Israel in the north, leading Judah and Jerusalem away from God, going step by step the apostate way of Ahab and his crew. Why, you even killed your own brothers, all of them better men than you. God is going to afflict your people, your wives, your sons, and everything you have with a terrible plague, and you are going to come down with a terrible disease of the colon, painful and humiliating." The trouble started with an invasion. God incited the Philistines and the Arabs who lived near the Ethiopians to attack Joram. They came to the borders of Judah, forced their way in, and plundered the place, robbing the royal palace of everything in it, including his wives and his sons. One son, his youngest, Azziah, was left behind. The terrible and fatal disease in his colon followed. After about 2 years in his colon followed, after about 2 years, he was totally incontinent and died writhing in pain. His people didn't honor him by lighting a great bonfire, as was customary with the ancestors. He was 32 years old when he became king and reigned for 8 years in Jerusalem. There was no tears shed when he died. It was a good riddance. And they buried him in the city of David, but not in the royal cemetery. Good God, you big dummy. Idiot. The people of Jerusalem made Azziah, Joram's youngest son, king. Raiders from the desert who had come with the Arabs against the settlement had killed all the older sons. That's how Ahazi, king, the son of Joram, king of Judah, became king. Ahazi was 22 years old when he became king. He reigned only for 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother was Athaliah, granddaughter to Omri. He lived and ruled just like the Ahab family had done. His mother trained him in evil ways. God also considered him evil, related by both marriage and sin in the Ahab clan. After the death of his father, he attended Sin's school of Ahab and graduated with a degree in doom. They taught him, went to Joram, son of Ahab, king of the Israel, in the war against Hazael, king of Aram, and at Ramoth Gilead. Jehoram, wounded by the Armenians, treated by Jezreel to recover from his wounds he received in Ramah in the war of Hazael, king of Aram. Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, paid a visit to Jehoram's son and Ahab on his sickbed in Jezreel. The fate of Ahaziah when he went to visit the God was God's judgment on him. When Ahaziah arrived at God, these names are killing me, y'all. God's judgment on him. When Ahaziah arrived at Jezreel, he and Jehoram met with Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom God had already authorized to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. Jehu, already at work executing doom on the dynasty of Ahab, came up to the captains of Judah and Ahaziah's nephews, part of Ahaziah's delegation, and killed them outright. Then he sent out a search party looking for Ahaziah himself. They found him hiding in Samaria and hauled him back to Jehu, and Jehu killed him. They didn't, though, just leave his body there out of respect for his grandfather Jehoshaphat. Famous as the sincere seeker after God, they gave him a decent burial, but there was no one left in Ahaziah's family capable of ruling the kingdoms. Excuse me. When Ahaziah's mother, Atalia, saw that her son had died, she took over. She began by massacring the entire royal family. Jesheba, daughter of King Jehoram, took Ahaziah's son Jehoash and kidnapped him from among the king's sons. Slated for slaughter, she hid him and his nurse in a private room away from Atalia. So Jehosheba, daughter of King Jehoram and Ahaziah's sister, she was also the wife of Jehoiada the priest, saved Joash from the murderous queen Atalia. He was there with her, hidden away for 6 years in the temple of God. Atalia, obviously to his existence, that ruled the country. In the 7th year, the priest Jehoiada decided to make his move and worked out a strategy with certain influence of officers in the army. He picked Azariah, son of Jehoram, Ishmael, son of Johanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Messiah, son of Abida, Elisphat, son of Zikri, and his associates. They dispersed throughout Judah and called the Levites from all the towns of Judah, along with the heads of the families. They met in Jerusalem. The gathering met in the temple of God. They had a covenant there in the temple. The priest, Jehoiada, showed them the young prince and addressed them. Here he is, the son of the king. He is going to rule just as God promised regarding the sons of David. Now, this is what you must do. A third of you priests and Levites who come to duty on the Sabbath are to be posted as security guards at the gate. Another third will guard the palace, and the other third will guard the foundation gate. All the people will gather in the courtyards in the temple of God, and no one may enter the temple of God except for the priests and designated Levites. They are permitted in because they've become consecrated. But all the people must do the work assigned to them. The Levites are to form a ring around the young king, weapons at ready, kill anyone who tries to break through your ranks. Your job is to stay with the king at all times and places, coming and going. All the Levites and officers obeyed the orders of Jehoiada the priest. Each took charge of his men, both those who came on duty on the Sabbath and those that went off duty on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest hadn't exempted any of them from the duty. Then the priest armed the officers with spears and large and small shields, originally belonging to King David, that were stored in the temple of God. Well armed, the guards took up their assigned positions for protecting the king from one end of the temple to the other, surrounding both altar and temple. Then the priest brought the prince into view, crowned him, and handed him the scroll of God's covenant, and made him king. As Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and they shouted, "Long live the king." Atalia, hearing all the commotion, the people running around and praising the king, came to the temple to see what was going on. And astonished, she saw the young king standing at the entrance, flanked by the captains and heralds, with everybody beside them. With joy, trumpets blaring, the choir and orchestra leading the praise, Atalia ripped her robes in dismay and shouted, "Treason, treason." Jehoiada the priest ordered the military officers, "Drag her out and kill anyone who tries to follow you." The priest had said, "Don't kill her inside the temple of God." So they dragged her out to the palace's horse corral and they killed her. Jehoiada now made a covenant between him and the king and the people that were to be God's special people. People poured into the temple of Baal and tore it down, smashing altar and images of smithereens. They killed Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altar. Jehoiada turned to the care of God's temple over the priests and Levites, the way David had directed originally. They were they were to offer whole burnt offerings of God as they set out in the revelation of Moses. And with the praise and song as directed by David, he also assigned security guards at the gates of the temple so that no one who was unprepared could enter. Then he got everyone together, officers, nobles, governors, and the people themselves, and escorted the king down from the temple of God through the upper gate and placed him on the royal throne. Everybody celebrated the event, and the city was safe and undisturbed. Athaliah had been killed. No more Athaliah terror. Man, I don't get all the evil. That's just crazy. Second Chronicles 2:21. Yeah, that was a long one. 21:1 through 23:21. This passage shows the contrast between wicked leadership and godly courage. King Joram abandons God, murders his brothers, and leads Judah into idolatry. His son Uzziah follows the same path. As a result, judgment falls on the nation. However, God preserves his covenant promised through Joash, a hidden child protected by the faithful priest Jehoiada and his wife Josheba. After years of evil rule in Athaliah, Joash is crowned king, and the true worship is restored. The lesson here is even when evil seems to be winning, God is faithfully preserving his purpose behind the scenes. Romans 11:13 through 36. But I don't want to go on about them. It's you, the outsider, that I'm concerned with now, because my personal assignment is focused on the so-called outsiders. I make as much of this as I can when I'm among my Israelite kin. The so-called insiders, hoping they'll realize what they've missed and want to get in on what God's doing. And their falling out initiated this worldwide coming together. The recovery is going to set off something even better, mass homecoming. If the first thing the Jews did ever thought if the first thing the Jews did, even though it was wrong for them, turned out for the good, just think what's going to happen when they get it right. Behind that, underneath all this, there is a holy God-planted, God-tended root. If the primary root of the tree is holy, there's bound to be some holy fruit. Some of the tree's branches were pruned, and you wild olive were grafted in. Shoots were grafted in. Yet the fact that you are now fed by the rich and holy roots gives you no cause to gloat over the pruned branches. Remember, you aren't feeding the root is feeding you. It's certainly possible to say other branches were pruned so that I could be grafted in. Well, all good. But then were pruned because they were deadwood, no longer connected by belief and commitment to the root. The only reason you're on the tree is because your graft took. When you believed and because you're connected to that belief nurturing root. So don't get cocky and stretch your branch. Be humbly mindful of the roots that keep you lithe and green. Lithe. I have no idea what that means. If God didn't think twice about taking pruning shears to the natural branches, why would he hesitate over you? He wouldn't give it a second thought. Make sure you stay alert to these qualities of gentle kindness and ruthless severity and exist side by side in God. Ruthless with the dead wood, gentle with the grafted shoot. But don't presume of his greatness. The moment you become deadwood, it's game over. And don't get to feeling superior to those pruned branches down on the ground. If they persist in remaining deadwood, they could very well get grafted back in. God can do that. He can perform miracle grafts. Why, if he could graft you, branches cut from a tree out in the wild, into an orchard tree, he certainly isn't going to have any trouble grafting branches back into the tree they grew from in the first place. Just be glad you're in the tree and hope for the best for the others. That's a lot. I want to lay all this out on the table and clearly as I can, friends. This is complicated. No kidding. It would be easy to misinterpret what's going on and arrogantly assume that you're royalty and they're just rabble out in their ears for good. But that's not it at all. This hardness on the part of insider Israel toward God is temporary. It affects its open it its effect is to open things up to all the outsiders so that we end up on the full house. Before it's all over, there will be a complete Israel. As it's written, a champion will stride down from the mountain of Zion. He'll clean house in Jacob, and this is my commitment to my people: removal of their sins. From your from your point of view, as you hear the embrace of the good news and the message, it looks like the Jews are God's enemies. But looked at it from a long range perspective of God's overall purpose, they remain God's oldest friends. God's gifts and God's call are under full warranty, never canceled, never rescinded. There was a time not so long ago when you were on the outs with God, but then the Jews slammed the door on him and things opened up for you. Now they are on the outs, but when the door held wide open for you, they have a way back in. In one way or another, God makes sure that we all experience what it means to be outside, so that we can personally open the door and welcome us back in. Have you ever come on anything quite like this extravagant generosity of God? This deep, deep wisdom. It's way over our heads. We'll never figure it out. Is there anyone around who can explain God? Anyone smart enough to tell him what to do? Anyone who has done him such a huge favor that God has to ask for his advice? Everything comes from him. Everything happens through time. Everything ends up in him. Always glory, always praise. Yes, yes, yes. Man, I'll be glad when Romans is over. I hate to say that. I really do. I just don't see. I mean, what was he partaking of? Because, good Lord, that's got to be Ezra. Man, that's more of that coming up. Romans for 2 Corinthians. That's 2:6. Let's see where we are. When do we get done with Romans? August 4th is the last day. Nope. August 3rd is the last day. Yes. Thank God we're almost done with the Romans. A breakdown of, and I don't mean that ugly, it's a lot. And the way Paul talks, I know the Bible's been broke down from Hebrew and Greek or whatever, and it just doesn't make sense sometimes. Just to me, anyways. Romans 11:13 through 36, Paul explains that Israel's rejection of Christ opening the door for the Gentiles to receive salvation, but God has not abandoned Israel. Gentile believers are warned against pride because they have been grafted into God's family by grace, not by merit. Paul reveals God's amazing plan. His mercy extends to both Jews and Gentiles, demonstrating his wisdom and faithfulness. The lesson is salvation is entirely by God's grace, leaving no room for arrogance and every reason for worship. Psalms 22:1 through 18. God, God, my God, why did you dump me miles away from nowhere? Doubling up in pain, I call to God all the day long, no answer, nothing. I keep it all night, tossing and turning, and are you indifferent above all? Leaning back on the cushions of Israel's praise. We know you were there for our parents. They cried out for help they cried out for you help, and you gave it. They trusted and lived a good life. And here I am, a nothing, an earthworm, something to step on, to squash. Everyone pokes fun at me. They make faces at me. They shake their heads. Let's see how God handles this one. Since God likes him so much, let him help him. And to think there were midwife at my birth, setting me at my mother's breasts. When I left the womb, you cradled me. Since the moment of birth, you became my God. Then you moved far away, and trouble moved in next door. I need a neighbor. Herds of bulls come at me, the raging bull stampede, horns lowered, nostrils flaring, like a herd of buffalo on the move. I'm a bucket kicked over and spilled. Every joint in my bone has been pulled apart. My heart is a blob, a melting wax of gut in my gut. I'm dry as a bone, my tongue black and swollen, and they have laid me out for burial in dirt. Now a pack of wild dogs come at me. Thugs gang up on me. They pin me down hand and foot and lock me in a cage, a bag of bones in a cage, stared at by every passerby. They take my wallet and my shirt off my back, and they throw dice for my clothes. Good God, David here sounds like he's about to have a breakdown. Breakdown of Psalms 22, 1 through 18. David cries out in deep suffering, feeling abandoned by God, yet this psalm is also a remarkable prophecy of Jesus' crucifixion. Phrases such as, my God, why have you forsaken me?" and descriptions of mocking, pierced hands and feet, and casting lots for clothing point directly to Christ's suffering on the cross. The lesson here is God understands our deepest pain, and even in suffering, his redemptive plan is at work. Proverbs 27. God loyal people living honest lives make it much easier for their children. The breakdown says, "The righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him." The proverb teaches that a life of integrity creates legacy. When a person consistently walks with God and does what is right, the blessings often extend beyond them to future generations. Character is one of the greatest gifts a parent can ever leave their children. The lesson says, your integrity today becomes someone else's inheritance tomorrow. If no one told you today, I love you and I appreciate you. We will see you tomorrow. It will be July 29th. Have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow. I love you. I love you. I love you.